Out there. Thanks for joining us for one of our Hillspring Town Talks. We're doing something a little bit different for the month of June, and we're going to be talking with various ministry partners throughout the Tri-City area on the various things that are going on to help in our community and to, help people who are hurting, really. And in particular tonight, we're going to be talking about the East Kennewick area. We've had a long-standing relationship, in particular with Eastgate Elementary School through our after-school program, and then we've been working with Amistad Elementary as well. So for tonight, for those of you who are joining in and don't know, I'm Trevor Owen. I'm the pastor of spiritual formation at Hillspring, and our panel here tonight. I'll let them introduce themselves, but I'll start with Jean, who is one of our people on staff here at the church and works with our after-school ministry. So,
thanks, Trevor. So I'm the coordinator for Tri-City Community Connections, and which is actually over 2 or 3 ministries, but the main one that people know about is after-school ministries. And we do focus a lot of things in East Kennewick. Prior to everything happening, I did after school program 3 days a week at Eastgate, and then a 4th day I started one with middle school students that came back and met with us. And so that was awesome. We were getting some things going with parents and some classes and some just building strong relationships there, and then things kind of changed. But now we are working with, I meet with on Zoom every week with the staff at Eastgate to keep up with the needs there. And I'm doing the same thing with staff at Amistad.
Very cool. Yeah, I was really, really excited when some of the middle schoolers that came out of the after school program started just showing up and hanging around. You're like, well, these kids really want to keep connected with us. So we're going to have to start something for that. That was really cool. So how about you, Nikki? Why don't you explain how you're tied into all of this?
Hi, I'm Nikki Wood. I am the school counselor at Eastgate. This is my 7th year as the school counselor there, but my relationship with Eastgate actually goes back to 1998. I started as an intervention specialist until 2005. Took a little time away to spend with my family, came back as a substitute school counselor when their counselor went on leave. And then when their counselor retired, I jumped at the opportunity to get to be the school counselor at Eastgate. So the school, the community has long had my heart. And it's just a really wonderful place to work. And the students and the families are amazing. And I just want to actually give a little bit of a shout out to Jean and just say how thankful we are for her. I know that Hillspring counts her as a staff member, but I got to tell you, she's part of our Eastgate family as well. And I'm so thankful for her because she loves our kids, just like the rest of our staff love our kids. So I just want to say thank you to her, and thank you, Hillspring, for all you do and for giving her to us and all the support.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been an honor to work out there with you guys. I know from multiple people and multiple levels. So Art King is part of our church and done a lot of work in that community and area. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Art?
Yes, I've done work with Kennewick Kiwanis. Amistad is our primary project. Kiwanis, we're supposed to work with kids. And a group of us, about a dozen of us, realized we had become a funding agency, but in fact, we were not a doing agency. And so we figured we got to figure out what we could do with kids. And we knew East Kennewick was kind of a challenged area. And so we luckily ended up with Amistad. And it was fortuitous because the principal has a very strong relationship with Kiwanis. His dad was a governor of Kiwanis and very involved with our Kennewick chapter. And so it was great connection. And so we have about 18 programs trying to help kids make good decisions and connect them to their education and make sure that they're doing well and give them another resource for the school, adults that they can connect to. And so we're doing very well. It's been about 5 years, and we need to expand our program if we can. But I have learned so much. I've been doing things with at-risk kids for about 20 years. I'm on the truancy board, my 19th year, and everything I've done in the community kind of led me to Amistad. So I'm really pleased to be there. I love the community. I love the school, and really want to help. So that's kind of what we're up to.
That's awesome. I didn't realize you guys had 18 programs going. I mean, I knew you had a lot happening, but that's amazing.
Yeah, some of them are one time, like we have teacher appreciation luncheon, those types of things. And we have a jogathon that helps finance some of their trips. So they're one-time events, sure. But almost all of them involve kids. That's
awesome. Yeah, and I know you and I've had some conversations in the last little bit about sort of walking with families for a significant long-term period, about how we could maybe work on some of that. So I'm excited about, not just the intervention at one little place, but an intervention and over a long term. So, so obviously all this COVID stuff is, it's hard all over. And we got small businesses that are shut and, people who are struggling with work and unemployment and all of that. But I know particularly in East Kennewick, some of the families there were already in a precarious situation and have felt some pretty major ripples. I'd be curious if you guys would share a little bit about kind of what the situation there is like, and we'll just make it a free-for-all style. Any one of you can answer and then piggyback off of each other. But, if you were going to tell our viewers that are primarily not in East Kennewick what the situation was like there, what would you say?
Well, I'd say that, the East Kennewick community is facing, a lot of the challenges that many of us are aware of, only on a deeper level. You have some families that do have essential workers. And so, they're still working, they're still, trying to support themselves financially, yet now they have kids at home, and so they are facing, childcare issues, how to educate keep their kids engaged with education online. We have lots of families who either were laid off or their hours have been reduced because of the closing of businesses. And so situations where families are having to choose between, do I pay rent this month or do we buy groceries for our family this month? And so those have been some of the needs that have just been amplified, by COVID. East Kennewick, many of our families are already in situations where they're working very, very hard, but they're living paycheck to paycheck. And so something like this, puts people into really difficult situations where they're having to make hard choices. And, in that regard, I'm so thankful. Can I just say thank you to the Hillspring community for you to take an offering and to dedicate it to our families is phenomenal. It just I want to cry just talking to you about it. It hits my heart so much. I hope that you understand what that means for these families, that they don't have to choose between paying rent and paying the groceries. You guys have been helping them with their groceries or paying the utilities or covering those things so that they can not fall behind and they can continue to keep up and continue to work hard and support their families and take care of their families and their children. And so I can't even underscore and thank you guys enough just what an impact your generosity is having on our families. So thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to tag on to that. As far as the financial side, I agree, Nikki. When I heard that the church was going to take the offering and then I heard what they raised, it did bring tears to my eyes too. I was just overwhelmed by the generosity of what was happening. But I'd like to share a little bit from the families. We've had families that'll say, you know what, I'm okay this month. Help the next person. They don't want to just stand there with their hand out. They don't want to take it if they don't have to. On the other hand, there's some that are in really bad need, like she's saying, and they don't know which to let go of and what to pay. And yes, there's some programs that are saying, okay, you don't have to get it paid this month, but it's just going to keep piling up. And they didn't have incomes before this that allowed for those extra, to get caught up easily. So it's great to be able to help them up that hill as they're climbing. And we helped somebody that their car insurance had lapsed because they couldn't pay it. We helped we just yesterday paid somebody's cable bill. Because they had lost their internet because they couldn't pay. Well, then the kids couldn't do schoolwork either. So, those are just some of the things that we've been able to help with. And like Nikki, I'm just from those families, they are extremely appreciative.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I'd like to step in and give a shout out to the church about what they did for the Tri-Cities Food Bank. The Kennewick Food Bank is the food bank that feeds the people in that neighborhood. And that's where they go. They can go every 2 weeks. I was the executive director for 5 years of the Tri-Cities Food Bank. And I was followed by John Neal from our church, who also was the director for 5 years. And I was fortunate to get a phone call from the director. I had given her a heads up that told her that there was a donation coming. She had no idea how much it was. And she called me and she said it was so important because that evening they had a board meeting and she had nothing but bad news except for the donation that they got from Hillspring. So it gave her some good news that she could give to the board in a day that she had to give bad news primarily because just the demand is overwhelming.
Yeah. That you're telling me about that. It's so exciting. So if you're out there and you're not sure what we're referring to, about a month ago, we dedicated an entire Sunday offering and giving to the East Kennewick area. And had, with some additional donations that came in after the fact, we ended up raising about $50,000 for that area, as well as $15,000 for Honduras. And so that's been distributed and check donations to the food bank. In fact, I think another one went out yesterday, Art. So
great.
They're watching. They'll get another one of those checks this week. As well as, well, Jean, why don't you tell us what are some of the ways that we're distributing that out or helping with that?
Well, I've mentioned utilities, and partial rent and some of those things. We've also been able to supply each of the schools with a number of like Winco gift cards, so families can go get groceries. And we were able to host a mobile market that comes out of Second Harvest, another area to get food. And we're going to host another one this coming Monday that will be held at the new Boys and Girls Club in that area for more of the Amistad families that couldn't get over to Eastgate. So those are some things that we've been doing.
Very cool.
Sorry, I just remembered on top of that, we've put together, I had 5 volunteers pick up supplies, and we put together 600 supply packets, 300 for each school, that will be handed out Friday and Monday. And it has art supplies and writing supplies and just some things to help keep kids active with some of that things throughout the summer.
Very cool.
Jean, I want to give you some feedback from Noemi, who is Nikki's counterpart at Amistad. And she appreciates all that Hillspring has been doing. And, this is, as Nikki knows, this is tough on the schools.
Yep.
And which in turn makes it tough on the kids. And all the resources that the community has supported has been great. And I know she appreciates all you've done for Amistad.
Both staff at both the schools are just amazing to work with, and they're like family, and it's real easy to meet with them and to get information on what can be done. They're both great.
Very cool.
What I have found, staff and teachers are special at Amistad, and the same with Eastgate. It takes special people to deal with the population they're dealing with, and they care a lot, and they go the extra mile. And I just want to give a shout out to all the people who, Kennewick School District, who do so much for our community, and how much we appreciate it.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what is the school situation there? I mean, obviously they're closed down like all the other Kennewick schools, but what does that look like for that demographic, and for those kids in that area? And are there specific challenges or difficulties, or how's that education going there?
So one of our biggest tasks has really been to make sure that families have access to the technology that they need to be able to access the online learning. Teachers have, Google Classroom set up, Class Dojo, means to be able to continue to provide lessons and learning to students. And so, part of what we've done as a team is, staying in contact with teachers, who are the students in your class that you haven't been able to connect with yet on your classroom platform. And then we've been able to kind of take over, work to contact the family. The district has done a phenomenal job in offering Chromebooks to pretty much any family, even up to a Chromebook for every 2 students if there are multiple students in a family. And so we've been working to get the families connected with being able to have Chromebooks. And then as well, working with Jean, if there's an issue with internet access, it's great to have a Chromebook, but if you don't have internet, it's not gonna do much good. And so that's been a process in and of itself, just making sure that they have those things that they need. But I can tell you, teachers are still teaching, education is still happening. And, educators are in this position where we've had to learn all these new things. Like, I never did a Zoom meeting in my life, and now I do 4 a day, just to stay connected, and recording lessons and posting videos and trying to maintain that level of engagement. I mean, educators, I'm so blown away by the commitment, the dedication, and really, staff worry about the kids. We don't get to see them every day. We don't get to look into their eyes, look into their faces, and know that they're okay. And so just being able to maintain any and all connection that we can is so vitally important. And so that's what we've been working really hard to try and do.
That's awesome. So you didn't go to school counseling school or whatever to learn tech support work?
They didn't teach me that.
Internet negotiations with Spectrum for people. But it is awesome that the school district on a broader sense is stepping up and helping out with that. I'm sure that makes it.
They recognize that there are a lack of resources. Not every family in East Kennewick has a laptop. We had students who were trying to access their class sites on cell phones. You know what it's like to try and read stuff on a cell phone. I mean, that's a challenge. And so being able to make sure that every home has a laptop, that's huge.
Right. Would some of you share a story about a family? Obviously, we'll leave names out for propriety, but share a story of something that a family is going through, or what things look like for them right
now. Well, I've got a couple. I know it went out on our prayer chain with the family's permission for the little girl who's having heart surgery next week, and they are just so appreciative of not only the help, but just the prayers and encouragement and the words of hope that they're receiving from us too. So that's been really great. And then there's a family where mom was having a lot of health issues, and a lot of that honestly is stress related and past trauma history. But when I talked to her yesterday, she got called back to work for a few hours a day, and she was so excited to be able to go back to work and to help provide for her family. She's a single mom, and again, so appreciative. And her little boy ran up to me and just gave me this painting that he did. And he just wanted to share something with me because we had been giving things to them. And so that was really cool. One of the first humbling things for me was when this first started and I was contacting families individually. how are you doing? What do you need? How are you feeling about things? And the families that would turn around and say, how are you doing? We miss you. Can we pray for you? And so that was super cool to be able to know that, they were caring for us just as much as we were caring for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that opportunity to build relationship and care for each other, I mean, is totally supersedes the financial or location or disparities.
Exactly.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah. Anyone else want to share a story of a family or someone you've been working with, connecting with?
I mean, I'd love to just share a mobile food bank that happens out at Eastgate. Just for me to have the opportunity to be there and see so many of our families come through. And, like for me, I mean, I've missed seeing face to face our kids and our families so much. And just to be able to see faces and, for the kids to, see me and wave and smile and meeting that need, just seeing how many families did come through and access the resources. And so thankful that we were able to offer them right there at our school site. We want to remove barriers, sometimes driving, and we're so fortunate in our community that we have so many, mobile food banks happening. But the difference between our families driving to Eastgate and driving out to, let's say, Southridge or, someplace else, that might be the difference between, I was talking to a family that we ended up giving a food card to. And I was talking, I called the mom and I, she was concerned about food. I said, there's a mobile food bank. It's this time, it's out at Southridge. And she's like, oh, that's so far out and I'm on my way to work and I have to get to work. And, so those are real barriers. Not every family can hop in their car at noon and wait in line to go, get the food at that particular time. Or if your car 305 in a line that has 300 boxes to give away, and now you've just sat there for, so those are the things. To be able to offer that right at our school just removed one barrier to enable our families to come down and do that. And I was so moved by just the gratitude, just the smiles and the thankfulness. But the other thing that really, really struck me and I think really tugged at my heart a lot is the number of faces that came through that had that look of embarrassment or that look of shame of having to be in a line to get food boxes. And that breaks my heart, because if anything we've learned in this pandemic is that we all need help. Maybe we don't all need food, but gosh, if the majority of us haven't had our moments where we've needed some emotional, the support of a friend and somebody to talk to, and, you're just not thinking I can do another day of this. And so I think just remembering that asking for help is a strength, reaching out for help is a strength. And we need to, encourage everybody, no matter what the need is, it is okay to ask for help. It is okay to say, I am struggling, and there's going to be people and resources out there to meet those needs. As long as we know that the needs are there, we can help.
And that's what I was going to tag on, that is it takes courage to drive to that place to get something that's needed. It takes courage to stand up and say, you know what, I'm not doing well today. And for us then to respond to say, hey, it's okay. We get it. We understand. And we're right there to walk through, with you.
We're definitely all in this together to different levels. I had the chance to go to that mobile food bank at Eastgate and help out there. And I mean, it was really cool. And I'll tell you, even from the people who are volunteering and helping out, like, we really had a great time. And it was really cool to connect in small ways with people. I actually had a lady that kind of near the end who, pulled in, and she said, oh, I had no idea this was going on. I just saw your sign out there. And, I really needed this. And this was perfect timing. And she goes, I feel like something's kind of going my way, and I haven't had a whole lot of those lately. And it was just really, really cool to be there and to help out. So
well, and I'd like to share too that we were able to, through that, help some of like the paras and some of those families from Eastgate, because they, their lives have been turned upside down too, and things aren't, going the way. And sometimes we forget about how it affects people like that as well. And so it was great also to be able to reach out to some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did have a question online about, well, are there supplies that we could be donating to the school or things that we could be giving to help out there?
I mean, I think, any year we are always very, very grateful. Any kind of school supplies, winter coats throughout the winter are always a need, we go through so many mittens. We're always, collecting mittens. We definitely, utilize those resources. Our students often come in the fall without school supplies. And so being able to provide them with those school supplies is really important. Anytime, aside from just this particular time, any support, we love that support. I mean, the support you guys have provided with the Christmas store. I mean, what an amazing experience that is for families to get to come in and, get gifts to give to their kids and, pick them out. And, the donations that you guys have provided through that have been phenomenal as well.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of donating coats and gloves to a grade school, but that makes a lot of sense.
Big need, yeah.
Yeah, not this past year. We gave, I don't know, a few hundred this past year, but the year before, we purchased enough so that there were 600 sets of gloves that we sent into the school because they come up missing really easy and things, but they don't have more to go get when they need it, so. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep.
One of the things that I learned at Amistad was the need for shoes. You always had kids actually with literally their toes coming out of their shoes.
Yep.
And I took kids on a field trip one day, and one of the kids had to take his shoes off because he had blisters. His shoes didn't fit. And so I think shoes are always a good thing that you don't think about that would be helpful.
Yeah. We have different times through ASM have had kids where, why aren't you doing something? Oh, my feet are really hurting. Well, why they hurt? Well, my shoes are too small, so we've always gotten them immediately. We'll go get a pair of shoes, one of the mentors will say, oh, I wanted to help with that or whatever. So that is something too.
Yeah. Yeah. That is good to know. And we'll try and compile kind of a list of ways that people can help at the end. And we'll talk about that in a little bit of, what are some concrete ways that people can keep helping. So, I mean, obviously the reason we are doing all this work in East Kennewick is because it's a part of the Tri-Cities that is really under-resourced and people are in need of a lot of help. What are some of the specific situations or needs that are in that community that is the reason that we focus so much energy and effort there?
Well, I mean, I think there's things, basic safety, things that a lot of us might take for granted. In the last little over a year, we've had 3 shootings in our Eastgate boundaries. 2 people were killed. And that's a big deal. We started the fall, we had the most recent shooting. There were students of mine in the park when that happened. And so they are literally have the traumatic experience of having bullets flying, and they're just trying to be kids. They're in the park trying to play with their friends. And so they now have to deal with the fact that they don't feel safe to go play in their neighborhood park. And, we're fortunate that we also have a great partnership with Kennewick Police Department. I mean, when I heard this happen, I called them and said, I've got some scared kids, we need information, we need to know. And they came right down and they talked with our kids. They, let them know that they are, working hard to assure their safety. But these are little kids. Most of us as adults haven't had to deal with something like that. And you've got elementary age kids that now are scared and anxious. And so, helping support them through those things, where they have a neighborhood where they don't feel safe. That's a basic need that a lot of us take for granted. We don't think twice about sending our kids to the park down the street. And that may not be something they can do. So that's one thing for me that really initially comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like to add something to that. Every time there's a violent crime, you have a perpetrator and a victim. Many times, especially in that neighborhood, those victims and those perpetrators have kids. Either way, there is great trauma for those kids. And we always think about the victim, but there's kids involved too, and they're traumatized. And if dad goes and is incarcerated, those kids are traumatized. And so you see both ends of that. And I've dealt with some kids there with incarcerated parents. And that's an issue, unfortunately, with a lot of those kids. And it's important to have an adult who cares about them, especially when they're going through that trauma.
Mm-hmm. And to have that consistency in their lives, because many of them don't have that. It's every day, it's a different thing. This month they might be living with this friend, and this month with somebody else, and or they might have a parent where they have no idea where that parent is. They haven't heard from them in years. They do have parents that get incarcerated. They have drug problems. They have financial issues. I mean, there's just a lot of things that go down. And you think about the adults going through these things, but then think about those kids. They're picking up on all this and hanging on to it and internalizing it, not knowing how to handle it and how to go forth with it. So that's what big percentage, I don't know what you would say, Nikki, but a big percentage of these families have some sort of trauma that has happened in their lives. And that affects their relationships and their schoolwork and their health and everything else.
Right. Well, I know you mentioned Boys and Girls Club a little bit ago, talking about doing the next food drive there on Monday. What are some of the resources and some of the things, maybe ministries or just programs that are in place to kind of help with some of this stuff? If we said, "Wow, we didn't realize that was going on," what are some ministries that are helping with that?
Well, the after school program, of course, where we work, building those relationships with kids, all the Kiwanis programs that Art talked about, the Boys and Girls Club, definitely. Park Middle School, I know, has some things in place. There are quite a few things. Unfortunately, right now, those are all shut down. We can't do any of them. But the more people we can get involved with those things when they are going, the more one-on-one time that kids can have with a stable adult in their life. And for that social and emotional learning, it's amazing what that does and how much that is needed.
Yeah, very cool.
I had a great experience with the Lunch Buddies program. I had a boy that I spent 2 years with him at Amistad, and he moved over to Eastgate. And so I decided to follow him over there since they had the Lunch Buddy program there too. And so I was on my third year with him, and I forgot. 1 week I forgot. And I really felt bad about it. I just had something else going on and just completely forgot about it. And that was absolutely devastating to him. Mm. I didn't realize what an impact of some guy, some adult male showing up every week and how important it was to him. Mm. And it just changed my whole attitude about how important I was to this boy. And having somebody they can depend on is huge.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine there, I've worked in different communities that, are more migrant or that, have parents that are in or out of jail or issues. And I mean, just the general sense of disruption to the world is constant and ongoing. And it makes it incredibly difficult to, I mean, sit down and have a sense of normalcy at all in your home, let alone, open your Chromebook to start doing homework.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there can be some significant challenges with that.
And then too, some of these parents, one or two of them, both of them, don't have citizenship or green cards. And so, and I'm not going to get into right and wrong there, but the fear then that's in those kids, they hear anything come across the news and they're like, oh, are somebody going to be knocking on our door and take us away or send us away? Do you remember a few years ago, there was the issue with the clown scaring people. Kids at After School Matters were just petrified that there'd be a clown showing up somewhere. They take those things that are happening and it just gets magnified in their lives.
Yeah. Absolutely. For people on Facebook, I just want to remind you that you can ask questions or comments, and I'll add to it. April posted something about she loves the lunch buddy thing. And I do know that, that's obviously not happening right now, but we've had a number of people from our church do that and, really enjoyed it, had a great time.
I can tell you, I like our dream when we sit down and dream about what we would do if we had the resources. Our kids who have had lunch buddies, it does make such a huge impact. And the list of kids that we have that we think, oh my gosh, they would just do so great, is always way longer than the amount of volunteers that we have. So, that would be a dream. Other things that we've talked about are just, especially really good, strong male role models, kind of the nature of an elementary school is it's filled with a lot of wonderful female adults, but, less, strong male role models. And, another thing we've talked about is just like having men come and volunteer at recess time to maybe referee soccer or basketball or, just play soccer or basketball out there with the kids and just have that interaction. And so, all the opportunities, for our kids to have those really awesome, relationships with adults outside of their families. Families are doing their very best. They love their kids. They're working hard for their kids. Some of our families are working 2 jobs and just aren't home a lot to have that lengthy interaction with their kids. Doesn't mean they don't care. It means they're working hard to support their families. And so I don't think there can be enough, positive adults in kids' lives.
Yeah.
I think especially males. Unfortunately, for many of these kids, men come and go in their lives. And so there's no stability as far as men. And I know when I was active in Lunch Buddies, I always emphasized talking about my wife, talking about my kids, things that they're doing so that my boy understood that I was connected and how important that is. And, kind of subtly let them know how important it is when you're a father that you stay connected.
And the respect that you have for your wife and your children.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They don't see that either sometimes, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah. In some ways there's when you're crossing over into new cultures or at least areas, there's a possibility for the world to get bigger and to realize, just because I've experienced this doesn't mean this is the only way. And that goes both ways, right? Like, I love going and doing cross-cultural trips or missions or those kind of things, because I always come back going, man, they do that so well, or that is so cool to see, or man, I should be better at, and it's a mutuality of growth, which is really cool.
family is extremely important to all the families. I mean, that unit is very important to them. Unfortunately, they don't always have the tools or the experiences. Things just aren't in their wheelhouse, to know how to do some things. So building relationships with them to help walk with them and encourage them is really super important. And you talk about, seeing outside of where you are. We tried to have at least once a month a community person come in to After School Matters and meet with the kids and talk to them about what they do. And it wasn't anything that it was a big glamorous thing, but it was just get them to see outside of their box, what's out there and what's available, and that there are opportunities waiting for them too, to get out and be able to do.
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
Very cool. Which does bring up then questions of, well, what can people do to help? I mean, we had Christine on Facebook here saying, can we write notes to them? Maybe send cards or something like that.
I was just going to bring that up. I've written, well, I've done that with all the after school kids. I've just the other day sent postcards to all of them again, but I was thinking the same thing of that was something Nikki and I could sit down and make a list, because people could be pen pals with these kids. And if you send them a letter and you put a stamped postcard in there, I bet they would write something on there and send back to you. It would be awesome. I think that would be a great thing to get started.
That's huge. We actually have a pen pal program at Amistad, and of course can't do it now, and because we're not allowed to have any contact outside of school with kids. But you see the writing improve over time with those kids. It starts off pretty rough and trying to figure out what is that kid saying. It's amazing in a very short period of time, when you start asking them questions that they have to answer, how good they get over time. And the teachers comment about how they improve their writing. And so, yes, that would be a great program.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Is that something we could do now, or is that something we'll need to wait for school to get back?
Well, that would be kind of Nikki there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think certainly with a lot of our After School Matters families, because there already is that connection, that would be helpful. But I think that's certainly something we could look at developing over time. Because for kids, like, what kid receives mail? Like, most kids are like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
And things like that.
Is there any way they could send letters to the schools? Because I say Kiwanis is very explicit about not knowing where kids live and having relationships with kids outside of school. You have to be careful. And I was wondering if there's a way of setting up almost like a P.O. box where you could send something to a kid at Eastgate and a kid can go over and pick it up or something. Is that something that could be done?
Yeah, we'll have to check into some things on that.
Yeah.
We might be able to route it through After School Matters or something too.
Right.
Talking about appreciating, I had a little boy. I showed this before we went on the air, but little third grade boy. I had no idea till they mentioned that it's the same colors. But this little third grade boy ran up to me yesterday after I visited with his mom and ran up and to give me this, because he loved that I sent him a postcard. I talked with his mom and he just wanted to share something with me. So, and I know you and I have also talked, when things get back to where we can meet with people again, maybe to get some mentor-mentee things set up with some families where we have people that will, walk alongside a parent or two and just encourage them and to help them with some of those decisions making and some of those things would be great too.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, kind of staying on the theme of what we can do to help, I assume the school district's not coming back in the fall. I don't know that for sure. Where are things at on that, Nikki? Is there?
We don't know yet. The state is going to make some kind of announcement on Monday as far as some state guidelines. And then after that, it'll be up to individual districts to determine within the guidelines that the state lays out what things might look like in the fall. So honestly, at this point, we don't know. We just don't know.
Okay. So, I mean, we're going to be doing this for a little bit anyway, at least through the summer, right? So, um, somebody, Josie had said that, she works full time, but would like to help. Is there ways to volunteer on the weekends or ways to get connected? And the pen pal idea seems to be really popular. Is there a Dropbox where kids could drop off and pick up cards or something like that? But what are some other opportunities coming up that people could help with?
That's a great question. I mean, I would say, if there's an opportunity to maintain some of the mobile food banks over the summer, I think people coming out and volunteering for that would be helpful. Really, I look at this as kind of as a long-term, even if in a perfect world we were back in school just as normal in the fall, we're still going to be feeling the ripple effects of this, families who have been impacted. And honestly, just because we're not in school and we don't, have eyes on kids every single day, or, the great thing about being with kids every day is if something's going on, they tend to run up and just be like, hey, this is going on. And, if there's something that, they need help with, they have a way of letting us know so that we can help. And now things are kind of flipped where we're really just trying to figure out, who might be some of our families that might be at risk or might need support, and, trying to reach out to them. But, there may be people who just aren't even on our radar and that we don't know yet that need help. And, if, the point in time where we do start having that more regular contact with kids and families, I think we're going to find, even more, things that have happened where families might need support. Once families get behind in bills or get behind, I mean, it is a hole that it's a challenge to get out of. And so yes. I think just, being mindful that, we have the resources there that we can support them in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I know if things go rough for me, right? If I get laid off or whatever, I mean, we've got a little cushion and we've got a network. We've got people that, we can rely on or get help with or apply for unemployment or, I mean, there's safety nets, right? I know for a lot of transitory or that, there again, people who don't have green cards or are citizens, there's a lot fewer safety nets. And when something goes wrong, you lose your income for a few months, that becomes almost insurmountable.
Those parents without papers, they didn't get the, what they call the check, the
stimulus.
The stimulus money. They didn't get that. They don't get unemployment. So, and like you said, they don't have that nest egg sitting there for times like that. And yeah, they're letting them get by a couple months not paying rent. Well, that's just going to make it 3 times the amount, in 2 months. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do think one big thing that we can do is be aware, right? I mean, it's really easy to sit in our ivory tower, for lack of a better analogy, and just be oblivious. I even talked about it on Sunday in the beginning of Acts, right? The first people that were called to repent were the religious people. The second people were the ignorant ones, and to become aware, to learn, to understand. And then out of that, A, care, and B, pray. And so we're definitely doing that.
Well, and I think the beauty of what's happening here is, I think too often it is easy for, like you said, people kind of look at things from their perspective and think, oh, those poor people, or, oh gosh, it must be so hard. And have, rather than having empathy, for families, or being mindful of, we all are in a position where we need help sometimes. But in this situation, I mean, you guys are coming and walking alongside our families. You are partnering with us. You are not just sitting back and saying, oh, that's so sad, how sad for them. You are truly being, the hands and feet of Christ in this situation. And I think that's really powerful, because that doesn't happen a lot. So I think that's a real testament to your Hillspring community and where you put your focus, and that you really are wanting to roll up your sleeves and do what it takes to walk alongside people who just need some support and some love and some empathy and some understanding, and not judgment, and not, well, why didn't you this, or just love.
And when we talk about prayer, we have those that have physical things going on, we pray for, but pray for, when talking with parents and some of these families, they have some fears. They have fears of bringing the illness home, getting sick themselves, or bringing it to their family. They have fears of losing their job or what little hours they have. They have fears of not knowing how to do this school thing over a Chromebook, and not keeping their kids interested in online of what they're supposed to be doing. And so I think peace and direction for them as well as for us of how can we walk together would be huge.
One of my favorite phrases is, God's economy is always relationship. And I love the fact that our volunteers and the people who are helping roll their sleeves up and want to walk with people, not just pejoratively hand out stuff, but
right.
To work with them, and that's really our hope. Somebody posted a question on YouTube about, is it better if we help people work for what they're receiving as opposed to just give it to them? Like, do they feel better about the situation? And I think it depends really on the person and the situation and what they can contribute to.
And I think we can't assume that people aren't working hard. Just because a family might be in financial need, they might be working 2 jobs, each parent, trying to get by. And so again, when I say we need to come at this from love and empathy and walking alongside people, it's easy to sit back and try and, pretend we know or think we know about why they're in the circumstances that they are. And you know what? We don't know. And if we think with judgments and make them feel bad about themselves, they're not going to want to partner with us. They're not going to want to let us come alongside and help them. They're going to put up the walls and they're going to say, nope, I can't trust you. And we've lost that opportunity for a relationship. We don't know people's stories, and we cannot pretend to even understand. Even if we know this much, we can't pretend that we know the whole story. And so we need to lead with grace and understanding and be willing to help where we can.
You hit the nail on the head. I think primarily we have to show grace at a time like this. And also we should not at a time like this hold anybody hostage to the help that can be given to them.
Right. That's a good way of saying it. You look at all the times Jesus healed people or the disciples gave something, they never said, make sure you do this right with it, right? Okay, go sin no more, but it wasn't a strings attached kind of a thing.
Yeah, God didn't say, I'll promise you eternal life, but I need you to walk 10 miles every day for a while. Or
one of the things I've learned is that this is a community that just doesn't have a lot of resources. And I think in terms of my neighborhood, the things that I can get done, that I can do. And they don't have it. And yet the kids that I deal with are very similar to my own grandchildren. They're not dissimilar. The kids are just kids, and a lot of different circumstances than my family, but that doesn't make them any different. And they have as much ability as my grandchildren do. Some of the kids I've met at Amistad are extremely bright. 2 of the kids that were very badly behaved I worked with my first year there were 2 grade levels above their grades. And that was one of the issues, whereas that they got bored easily. And so don't assume that these kids don't have a lot of potential. And that's what we lose if they don't connect these kids to education, is we lose their human potential. And that's a huge loss. They're good kids. They're fun.
I had a couple of boys last year that wanted to do everything possible to have me kick them out of the program. And I said, I don't do that. That's not why you're here. That's not our, how we look at things. And they couldn't understand why I couldn't just get rid of them, just make them quit, and they wouldn't have to come anymore. And I says, nope, that's not our focus. That's not how we're doing this. Kept loving them and working with them. And this past year, they were in middle school, came back, and hey, can we come to that camp and help? Can we be a part of that now? So the turnaround that we saw in them it's so worth it to hang in there with these guys.
Yeah, one of those kids was Angel, right?
Yes.
I remember meeting him one of the times I was down there, and I'm like, that kid's a leader, but he I told in a good way or a bad way.
The day we sat at the table and they wanted to quit, and I said, you guys are leaders. You aren't seeing that right now, but I told each of them how I saw that potential in them. And, it wasn't an overnight, a success, but it worked on them, and they realized somebody cared for them as individuals. That's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So as we kind of get near the end of our time here, is there hope? There's stories of hope, good things going on that we can kind of wrap up with, of, where you see goodness at work, yeah.
Well, I checked in with the Boys and Girls Club because Kiwanis just isn't active. And so until next fall, we don't know what's going to happen. So I checked in to see what was going on there. And he said there was actually a group of kids that started their own math club, and they didn't even know what was going on. And all of a sudden they heard about it. And so the Boys and Girls Club got involved, and then they got programs for them and everything. But this is stuff that kids did on their own because they weren't in school. And so I thought that was pretty cool.
Very cool.
That's really cool.
I think one thing that I've seen in participating, a lot of the teachers are having Zoom meetings with their students. And it gives me a lot of hope when I see students, who are, they're coming to every single Zoom meeting that the teacher has every week. And those are some of the kids that when they were there in school with us, they gave us a run for our money, man. They were pushing the limits. They were testing us. We were just, doing cartwheels, trying to get interventions and supports in place. But every single week, because that relationship means something, get on the computer so that they can come to school and see their teacher, see maybe their counselor, see their classmates. And that's incredible. Those, again, it keeps coming down to those relationships. Those relationships are everything. And so I have hope because we're learning so much in this time. And I think, I'm hopeful that once we get through this, we're going to look back and we're going to look at all the lessons that we've learned and how we've had to change and we've had to adapt things. And we have had to make school accessible in a lot of different ways for students. And because different students do better in different modes of educational presentation. Some kids are loving this online stuff, it doesn't replace the face-to-face interaction. That's hard.
Sure.
But I think we're going to look back and we're just going to be like, wow, that was the hardest time I ever remember going through. But man, did we learn and grow and develop and look at what came out of this. And I think we're going to have really amazing, amazing epiphanies come out of this whole experience. And
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know talking with my friends, if they're extroverts, they're like, this is torture. If they're introverts, they're like, this ain't bad at all. I'm sure it goes the same way for kids too.
Yeah. I see a lot of hope with the people of Hillspring wanting to, how can we get out there and do something, not just write a check. They want to be a part of it. And I know that we're all anxious to actually be physically doing something. And we ask for patience right now because we're, it's a whole new world for a lot of us, but we will find ways that we can connect. And then remember when we can start meeting in person again, there's going to be lots of opportunities that we'd love to get people connected with other people and just to build those relationships with each other. It's so important. And I can't say enough about the staff at Eastgate that have been such a blessing to work with these last several years. And they're just amazing. And that staff, I said from the beginning, the teachers and everybody, they could go to a different school where it wasn't so hard. But most of those teachers have been there a lot of years because that's where their heart is. And they love working with those families and those kids. And that's just awesome.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Well, thank you guys so much for joining in and filling us in a bit on kind of the situation out there and what's going on. We certainly appreciate all your experience, and more than that, just your heart for serving and caring for our community and kids in that area, and just all the work, blood, sweat, and tears you're pouring into this. If you're out there in Facebook land or you're interested, by all means, you can contact the church or contact Jean. Certainly, I would imagine you can talk to Nikki directly through the school. There aren't a whole lot of hands-on opportunities right now because we should not be doing a whole lot of hands-on at all.
But we will take names.
Yeah, but we will take names.
We will take names.
And you can always give through the church specifically for that. So, we have an ongoing fund. We're, spending the money as it comes in and doling out to help out as best we can in a relational way. And so people are definitely willing to donate and help with that. So, and, please be in prayer for everybody. So I'll close us in prayer and we'll end up. God, I just thank you, first of all, for your people and others with a heart for love and care that are concerned, that are helping, that are serving, that are giving, that are lifting up and encouraging. And I thank you in particular for these three and the ways that they are deeply invested and care for the people that they're in contact with in East Kennewick, and the way that they're helping to help those that have far fewer resources navigate this really difficult time and beyond. And so, God, I pray that you would give them wisdom. I pray that you would bless them with hearts of tenderness and compassion that just continue to grow. And I pray that you would just provide the volunteers and the support and the help that they need in all the different avenues that they're involved. God, we know you watch over all of us. We know that you call all of us as Christians, as part of your body, to help be the answer to people's prayer. And I thank you for the ways that this church and these people in our community are doing that. May you continue to lead us always. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you, Jean and Nikki and Art. It's great to chat with you guys as always. And I know I'll see a few of you on Monday out at the next food distribution. So I'll be looking forward to that too. So have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Bye.